Thanks everybody for joining us. If you haven't been on one of our calls yet, one of the AMRI calls, let me do a quick introduction. I'm just sharing with Kelly, our guest today, about AMRI. Let me do a very quick introduction, and if you have any questions at the end of the call or so, we happy to follow up on that. So AMRI stands for Accelerate Montana's Rural Innovation Initiative. We are one of the groups in the University of Montana's economic development umbrella, if you will. So there's a number of groups. There's the Blackstone Launchpad, which you may be familiar with if you're the University of Montana faculty or student, which is focused on launching businesses out of staff, faculty, and students. And then there's the World Trade Center. There's the Procurement Technical Assistance Group, PTAC. There's also SBDC, which is at the University of Montana. There's the Code School, and there's AMRI, and all of us work as a team, as the economic development team at the University of Montana. AMRI specifically was created out of a grant from the EDA, the Economic Development Administration, about a year and a half ago, in October of 2018, and it created a university center. And there are EDA university centers around the country that are focused on using university resources to support economic development within their region. And each of them have a little different vision or different direction on that. The university center that was created at the University of Montana is focused on rural innovation and rural startup businesses. And we really try to do that in two main ways. One, direct coaching with businesses and entrepreneurs. So any business like yourself, you can meet with us as many times as you'd like and as frequently as you like. Provided there's some learning in between those meetings. That's the only caveat we have. The other way we do is we're trying to build out this ecosystem of the entrepreneurial resources for folks to start businesses and successfully run your businesses in rural Montana. We kind of have this idea that you have a lot of resources in other places of the country to do entrepreneurship activities, and why can't we have those in rural Montana? So our job is to try to get those resources and connections and relationships out there so everybody can take advantage of that. Carly Snell, who's on the call, she and I are the two full-time folks on the grant. We also have Siddharth Baldugo. He's also on the grant. He's just started in the last 2 months, and he is actually AmeriCorps Vista. It's been exciting to have him on the team. We also have Mason Dow on the call. He's a student working on AMRI as well. And so then we have all the rest of you, some of which we've seen on the calls and some of we haven't. So we won't have a big enough group now. We won't have time to do introductions all the way around. But if you do want to ask a question, feel free to share a bit about what you do and what your business is or what you work on. So I see Matt, you're on. Matt Harrington, he's on, and I see Kristen's on. So those folks we haven't seen, if you want to, when you ask your question, feel free to jump on. But again, a couple of housekeeping things. This is recorded. So we tend to record them and then put them up on our Facebook page, as well as on the BEAR resources page. So the BEAR powered by is a resources page set up for entrepreneurs trying to navigate COVID challenges. We also, if you want to ask questions, you can you can type it in the chat button at the bottom. So if you kind of scroll your cursor to the bottom, if you haven't used Zoom yet, you see the green button is share screen. Next to that is chat. If you click the chat button, you can type a message, and we'll be tracking those and sharing them if you don't want to unmute your mic for whatever reason. I have a young son at home playing in the other room, so sometimes it gets loud. I understand that. Let's see, Carly, any other housekeeping things? We also started a Facebook page about 4 or 5 weeks ago, really focused on supporting entrepreneurs in rural Montana. So it's the AMRI Facebook page, and we have a group there that's set up with these resources. So please check that out. And you can maybe Sid will type that in there. You can check that out and see if there's any folks on there sort of chatting about things that you have questions on. So with that, let's get started. So today we have Kellyann Deniger from Missoula Job Services. And I heard Kelly present at a meeting I was on a week ago and thought, holy smokes, these are questions that a lot of folks we've been talking to have. They're questions I have around unemployment and reopening, and sort of the challenges that business owners, small business owners, are maybe having, as well as people that are self-employed or sole entrepreneurs, and questions around filing for unemployment, doing some work, or going back to work, and how those things balance. So I chatted with Kelly and thought it would be great to sort of have this opportunity for you all to also hear from her, but really to ask her questions. So I've asked Kelly to come on, not to present, but really to ask questions. So I hope you all have some questions for her today. So Kelly, thanks for joining us. I know typically you're the job services, so you're placing people and finding jobs for people, but as of late, because of the huge demand placed on the unemployment process, you stepped up and your organization has stepped up to support the unemployment filing and getting people answers. So really appreciate that. I know it's people are going through a lot of challenging times, so really appreciate your work there. If you want to say a bit about Missoula Job Services and what you typically do, and then how you've kind of transitioned, just to share with people your current work, and then we'll jump right into questions.
You bet. Well, thanks for having me. It's very nice to be here. I've worked with Job Service for 28 years. So when unemployment was in the local offices, I worked in unemployment at that point in time. It was taken out of the local offices, I believe, in 1997. So it's been gone a long time. And fortunately, we haven't had to jump back into it because we haven't had any situations like this. Unfortunately, we do now, and there are so many people that are hurting. And so we have jumped into the process, as Carl said. We're really limited on the information that we can give to people calling in, but folks are having such a hard time making a connection with a person, a human person, because they're just overloaded with the calls in unemployment insurance, that we do what we can to help them, to assure them, to give them just maybe some other resources that there are out there so they can be able to make it through till they can get their unemployment approved. Just real briefly, I just want to explain the 4 different types of unemployment that are out there right now. There is the regular unemployment. That's for people that have worked for an employer and have wages in the base period that make them eligible to be able to draw unemployment. There is the pandemic unemployment assistance, and that's for people that are not otherwise eligible for the regular unemployment. It could be people that are self-employed. It could be people that don't have enough wages in the base period to be eligible. I mean, there's a lot of different areas that people can be eligible for unemployment with the PUA is what it's called. There is also the PEUC, which is the Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation. This is for folks that have exhausted their regular unemployment and they have no other options for them. It gives them an additional 13 weeks of unemployment. The 4th one is called the FPUC. I love these acronyms. The Federal Pandemic Unemployment Compensation. And that's one that most people have probably heard about, that adds an extra $600 per week to everybody that files a claim. So if they're eligible for $400 a week in either regular unemployment or the pandemic unemployment, they get an additional $600 a week on their claim automatically because of that. That is scheduled to end July 25th. Who knows what will happen to it? I read yesterday that they're looking at another bill that would expand that through January. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen at this point in time. But those are the 4 primary unemployment programs that are out there now. 3 of them were originated from the CARES Act. So that's just a basic background.
Great. Thank you. I've got some questions, but I'm happy to hold them if anybody on the call wants to jump on some questions or a question. Just unmute your mic. Joanne, looks like your mic's. Do you want to say something? Yeah, here, I'll unmute. There, try that.
Did I do it?
You got it. We can hear you.
Oh, okay. So I have a question. I was fired, but not because of the coronavirus. And So I'm trying to see if I am eligible for any form of unemployment. Because when I did like a quick look on the web page, it said if you were fired through a fault of your own, you weren't qualified. So I needed clarification about that.
Well, those are what that would be called, what is called an issue claim. And the only way you're going to know if you're eligible or not is if you file. So you've got to file for unemployment. If you worked in Montana during the base period, which right now is January 1st through December 31st of last year of 2019, if you worked in Montana and you have over $2,900 in wages earned during that time, more than likely you would be monetarily eligible for unemployment insurance. And then they call them adjudicators would have to look at the reason for your separation from your employment. So the employer would have a chance to provide input. You have a chance to provide input, and the adjudicator would make a decision based on Montana law. If it turns out that you're not eligible because either you didn't have enough wages during that time, it's a very good chance that you might be eligible for the pandemic unemployment insurance or assistance is what they call it. But the only way, again, you're going to know is if you apply. And you want to apply immediately because
where do I apply?
You can go to mt.gov, montana.gov, and or actually the best place to go would be montanaworks.gov. And there's two places on there. There's one to file for regular unemployment, and there's one to file for the emergency unemployment, but you've got to be determined to be not eligible for the regular unemployment first before you can file for the emergency one. So I would really encourage you to file today, because it'll take a while. It's called an issues claim, and they're backed up, as you can well imagine. But the only way you're going to know is if you file, and your claim isn't going to be effective until the day that you file. So you really need to do that as soon as possible. And if you have any problems filing, it's actually pretty easy. But if you have any problems or run into anything, call your local job service. They can walk you through that. That's what we've been doing.
I'm at the job service right now.
But they're closed.
Right. And I thought that, because I saw a post on Facebook that said that I thought it was going to be open from 12 to 1. I didn't realize it was going to be like this. But I called the number there, and I couldn't get anybody, and there was nowhere for me to leave a voicemail for them to call me back. It hung up.
Can I ask you what city you're in?
Missoula, Montana.
Oh, that's us. That's where I'm at. You call 728-7060, and we'll get you to somebody. We'll get you to somebody.
I just called that number though, and it went through the whole prompting, like saying like all the options of how to reach somebody, and then it said I can leave my number, and just someone will call me back because it's high call volume, and I'm waiting for a beep or something to leave my number, and then it was like it went to another prompt and it hung up.
But I sure don't know what's happening there, but I'd really have you just call and let me give you my direct dial number that you can call after a while, and I'll get you to someone that can help you. My number is 542-5768, and I'll get you after this call. You bet. You call me and I'll get you to someone. Okay.
Kelly, do you mind if I put that in the chat here?
That's fine.
Okay, I just typed it up here.
Yeah.
So, Joanne, I just put it in the chat. So if you click on the chat button, you'll see it on the right on your bar there.
Can you put on the screen the website again?
Yes.
It's in the chat box.
I got it on. I got MontanaWorks.gov in there, so it's in the chat as well. There, Joanne, if you want to take a look at it, right by Kelly's phone number, and that will stay there for the whole duration of the meeting. Any other follow-ups? I see one. Matt Harrington has one as well. Has a question. Well, you want to read it, Carly?
Yeah. So Matt Harrington has a question of, so if you apply for unemployment, it will automatically see if you are eligible for emergency unemployment?
Well, if you are, you have to determine whether or not you're going to be eligible for emergency or for regular unemployment first. And if you're not, then you would need to apply for the pandemic unemployment. You are determined and eligible for regular UI, even though it's the same website to go to file. We've got the Montana Works on that has the regular unemployment and then the pandemic unemployment. They're two totally different systems. They've had to create the pandemic unemployment website. That's what's taken so long for people to get benefits, is they had to totally create the site. So file for unemployment on the regular side if you're not eligible, and you'll know fairly quickly. You'll know whether or not, if you're not monetarily eligible, then you would definitely go immediately to the pandemic unemployment and file. But if you're determined not to be eligible because of your reason for discharge, Joanne, then you would file for the pandemic one. And that, I can't tell you whether you will or not, because they've got to gather that information, and that's up to the adjudicators in unemployment to make that decision. So, okay.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Kelly, I have a question.
You bet.
So if somebody potentially had a job lined up for summer, I know there's a lot of seasonal employment that a lot of people are coming into for the summer months. Right. And that was canceled due to COVID-19, but that person wasn't technically hired. What might be the resources for somebody in a position like that? Even if also perhaps if they didn't do that seasonal job in 2019, where should they go, or should they look, and what documents they might need, things of that nature?
Well, definitely you would be eligible for the pandemic unemployment, because the job was no longer available because of COVID-19, correct? So again, you might have to determine whether or not you are eligible for regular UI. And if for whatever reason you're not, then you would want to apply for the pandemic unemployment insurance and get a determination. Again, you got to file. You got to file immediately, because the only way you're going to know is if you file. So, and another really important thing is, once you file, just because you file your initial claim doesn't mean you're done and you don't touch it. Every week you've got to file for benefits. There's a series of questions that you've got to answer. If you don't do that every week, then your claim closes after 2 weeks, because they think that you're not eligible, or they think that you don't, they think that you don't want to collect benefits. So if it takes a while to determine whether or not you're eligible, they'll pay you back for all those weeks. We've had folks that are getting checks for $4,000 because they've been paid back for the weeks that they filed for. So file immediately, and then continue to say that you want to file on a continued claim every week. And the week always begins on Sunday and ends on Saturday. So you would want to file for the week previous every Sunday. Does that help?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Kelly.
Any more questions out there? I don't see any in the sidebar. Hi, Claire. If I could help you.
I have a follow-up question on that front.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
I filed for unemployment on March 16th and haven't received. Well, I received notice that it was in review, the application, and that's as far as anything. I haven't heard anything else from them. And so I talked to someone at PUA, and they suggested that it was probably because I had a business, but I was also an employee of another company. And so I'm wondering if that's unusual to have that be so long for any kind of response. And then the second question, Kellyann, is I don't file every week just because I've never heard from anybody about this. And so what are my next steps?
Well, you need to file. So
I filed.
How long has it been since you filed? Let me answer your second one first, and we'll get to your first one. you've got to continue to file every week or every other week. You can do every other week for the last 2 weeks or every week, but you've got to. That's the only way you'll get paid back. Now, I don't know the particulars of your claim with the first one, and that does complicate it. If you are essentially self-employed, right, but you had wages from another company, then somebody actually has to go in and touch that case and look at it and make a determination on that. Those are the cases that are taking a long time. Unfortunately, it's not usual, but for what's going on right now, it's usual. It's not a story that we're not used to hearing. We've got lots of folks that have been filing and filing and filing, and they haven't heard anything because an adjudicator actually has to go in there and touch the claim. So I wish I had a better answer for you. I don't. It's taken them a while. I can tell you they pulled people from everywhere. Other people in Department of Labor, Department of Revenue, they pulled in to try and get these claims answered. But on that type of particular problem, it's got to be somebody with experience. It's got to be an adjudicator going in there and being able to look at that. And there's only a handful of them that do that because we've never experienced anything like this before. So I'm sorry, it's not a good answer. There are some other resources that we have that we might be able to refer you to. And if you want to give me a call after, I'd be glad to give them to you. Because there are other programs out there that, I mean, one in particular that can help folks get their rent or their house payment made, which at this point in time could be really useful for some folks that isn't tied to unemployment insurance. So it was one of the governor's programs that was released last week. So give me a call. I'll give you the resources for that. And, you know, I'm sorry. I know it's very difficult, and I wish I had a better answer, but I just don't. I can assure you that they are working through them as quickly as they can. So
thank you.
You bet.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. We also have the governor's program on our website, the BEAR website, as well as our Facebook page. So that resource is there for anybody who's interested.
And if you get to the housing application in particular to get help with your rent or your house payment, and you have problems with that, you can give me a call at our job service or give your local job service office a call. They'll be glad to help you out with that too. And even though we're not seeing people in person, Joanne, we're close to customers, but we are working with people on the phone. So every job service across the state of Montana, there are 17, are working with people through the phones. So,
Kellyann, what's the best time for someone to call you for the best use of your time?
Well, any time. I'm generally not here during lunch. Generally, I'm not. I take lunch from 12 to 1, but I'm in an unbelievable amount of meetings, as you can understand, about this point in time. Just call. I'll give you a call back if I don't answer right away. So leave me a message.
Thank you.
You bet.
And just a little aside, we hear a couple of days ago on a phone call, or I guess it was yesterday morning, the governor's office was on the call and said that the housing program has been undersubscribed so far. They're kind of surprised. They don't know why. So if you do run into problems with that application, if it's one that you're interested in, let somebody know. You can let us know, and we can get that back to them. They're trying to fix it if there's a problem. But definitely take a look at that, because that's a program that hasn't been probably subscribed for yet.
And they're getting money out very quickly in that. We've had a couple experiences here with folks we've helped in our office. They're getting the money out very quick to the landlords and to the mortgage folks. So it's a great program.
Yeah, all the programs are. Yeah, I think they were rolling money out as of yesterday or even Tuesday, maybe. So, yesterday was Tuesday. Quick follow-up on Doug's question. So Doug, maybe you filed for unemployment under the job that you had under the other employer rather than your own business. But Kelly, just to clarify, he could file for one or the other, right? He could file under his own business, given the pandemic, or like under the CARES Act unemployment piece, or he could file under the other one. Is that correct?
You know, yes and no. I am not am not real sure how that works. If they've got wages under another employer, they're going to want them to file a regular claim first. And it might very well be that that turns out that they're not eligible under that. And then they would have to file for the pandemic.
Okay.
So it depends on the circumstances, but I definitely, more than likely, he's going to have to file a regular UI claim first if there's wages over there. So.
Okay. Anyone else? Thoughts or questions? Claire, you had one? Yeah, here, let me get you off mute. There you go.
Hi. Hi, I'm Claire Muller. I'm with the Cedar Lake Community Foundation. And thank you so much, Kellyann, for being here today. I've got a couple questions, but I'll just start with one. I've been reaching out to business owners here in Cedar Lake and just trying to see what people need and what questions they have. One thing that I've heard of, I've heard worries, I haven't heard of anyone directly, but I've heard worries about bringing people, like navigating the PPP and bringing employees back on with unemployment, specifically in regards to if an employer says, hey, we got PPP money and we need you to come back, and there's some resistance or fear on the part of the employee, or saying, you know, well, this is really a great setup I've got right now with the extra $600 a week. So I was wondering if you could talk about how employers can navigate, or I guess the fear that I've heard is that the employer will have to report the employee, or can you talk about how that might look?
Yeah, we've heard that too. We've actually had some frustration from employers that have called back folks to work that they're saying, oh, I'm making more on unemployment insurance. I don't want to come to work. Your PPP, whatever, I don't want anything to do with it because I'm making more on unemployment, which becomes problematic for the employers that have gotten the PPP loans, because I believe it's 75% of the loan has to be in wages. So there might be some folks that worked for them part-time that they're paying them, either they're not at work, because there's a lot of employers that are continuing to pay the wages and the folks aren't at work. But if they worked part-time, which a lot of the people did work part-time in retail, restaurant, bars, whatever it happens to be, it very well could be that they're still eligible for unemployment as long as they don't make more than, as long as the PPP payment is not more than 2 times that claimant's weekly benefit amount. So let's say somebody's determined to be eligible for $300 a week. Their the protection plan, the PPP, they're paying their normal wages, which turns out to be $250 a week. So as long as they're not making more than 2 times their weekly benefit amounts, as long as they're not making more than $600, they're going to still be eligible for partial UI benefits plus the additional $600 on top of that. So when they're figuring what the 2 times their weekly benefit amount, they're not counting that $600. They don't add that on till later. So if somebody is eligible for even $1 a week because of the wages that they have, they're going to get the additional $600 on top of that. So there's that. My point with that is claimants are required to report any money, any income that they have coming in from their employer. They have to report it. Whether or not they're going to be eligible for continued benefits, continued unemployment benefits, is going to be individual. There's no way I can tell, because every claim has got a different eligibility, different monetary eligibility. Now, for the employers that we've been working with that are saying, these people don't want to come back, I need them back, I need to open my business, they've got 1 or 2 choices. They could choose not to report it, but they probably should report it, because if the whole purpose of unemployment insurance is to supplement you when you're not working. And if somebody is choosing not to work, and if they're turning work down because they've got it pretty good. They're sitting at home and bringing in more money than they had before. That's not a good reason to turn down work. They have to go to work, or they risk losing their unemployment insurance. Now, there could be particular circumstances where somebody, if there's some safety issues at the workplace, they might still be able to collect. Highly doubtful. I mean, they need to go back to work. The employer's obligation to report that, we had one employer that said, yeah, I know I should report it, but I'm going to need them later on, and they're a good employee, and I'll just have my other ones come back, and I'm not going to rock the boat because I want them. I understand that. I mean, that's a decision the employer has to make, but there are options for employers if you want them to work and they're not coming to work, and you need to report those to unemployment insurance. So.
Yeah, I think it can create, we've heard the same thing. I think, Claire, we were kind of talking about this a week or so ago as well. In a small community in particular, if you try to do that, you push hard on folks while times are hard on everybody, even if they're right now getting paid more, it can create a lot of animosity in small communities, which isn't good for anybody, right, especially now. So yeah, definitely a challenge. But I think it's, I learned from the conversation or that meeting last week, Kelly, from you, that part of it, that people can go back to work and not necessarily lose all of their unemployment, right, which I think is a big piece that we didn't know. Our team at Emory didn't know that. We're like, wow, I bet a lot of people don't know that. So that's important to get out there, because then you could go back to work and still be potentially getting the $600 part from the federal government, which would still allow you to earn quite a bit more for the short term, next few weeks anyway. Yeah. So I think that's an important piece to look at, and for employees to have a conversation with their employers or vice versa.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for that question.
Yeah. There was an identical question in the chat box, so thank you for asking that. Yeah, does that answer your question, Kelly?
Yeah.
I think it did.
Kelly Dixon, sorry. Kelly Dixon
Kelly
was
Dixon,
asking.
sorry, no, Kelly. I believe it probably did.
Yes, it did.
Great.
Claire, unless there's other questions, Claire, you said you had a second question.
Sure, yeah. I've got another question. And you touched on it a little bit with the rental assistance program that's out there. But one thing that's been on my mind has been all these different pots of money that are out there. And I think that there are just people are a little bit uncomfortable navigating how to apply for multiple things at once. So I was wondering if you had any guidance on, for example, if someone applied for the United Way Service Workers $400 grant, and then they also applied for this rental assistance grant, or they're also on unemployment or something. I mean, it's kind of complicated how everything intersects, and there's no easy answer. Obviously, I know it's situational dependent, but I was wondering if you could provide just kind of some thoughts on how people should think about all these different avenues of assistance that are there, and as they try and wrap their heads around what is the best, how to be smart about going forward, the best things for them.
Well, it is difficult. And for those of us that are working it every day, we still don't have all the answers or have our heads wrapped around everything. So I can certainly understand why people would be confused, not know what's going to be best for them. The only thing I can tell them is if you don't apply, it's going to be no. No matter what, it's going to be no. So do some research on it. For instance, the housing grant that I was talking about, that Carl and I were talking about, you can't have had any other housing assistance in order to be eligible for that grant. So that if you had received $400 from United Way to pay your rent, you're not going to be eligible for that grant. So, but again, there's little nuances for each and everything that's out there. Research it as best you can. Go on this website, the Facebook that Carl was talking about, the BEAR website. Actually go on mt.gov, and it will have the governor's initiatives there. Research them. If you have questions about it, give your local job service a call. We'll be glad to walk you through what we know and what we can do. There are some that we just aren't as familiar with. But the answer is always going to be no if you don't apply. So if you think anything is going to help you, apply. It's not going to hurt. The worst they can say is no. And generally the application they're not too bad for most of these things that are out there right now. So no, that's not a lot of help, but I just really encourage folks to apply. There's a lot going on, and I know people sometimes are reluctant to do and apply for programs. What I always tell them is, hey, you've paid taxes for years and years and years. This is your tax money. If you can get some use out of it that's going to help you keep your head above water, you need to do it. So
thank you.
Yeah.
And Claire, I put the link to that in the chat there, or at least to the governor's. You've probably seen it, but sorry, Carly, go ahead.
Yeah, Deborah, did you have a question?
Thank you. I'm with Senator Tester's office, and I've been asked this and don't know an absolutely accurate answer to it. Does the $600 additional unemployment affect someone's eligibility for SNAP? Is it counted?
Well, that's really a question for the Office of Public Assistance.
Okay.
But since one of the programs we have here is a Pathways program, which is we contract with Department of Health and Human Services to administer. So I actually do know something about that, and yes, it will affect their SNAP benefits.
It is.
It's
the
counted,
$600
yes.
plus
Yes.
the regular UI plus that does count against your SNAP.
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, it's considered under income, so it does count against it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions, anybody? Kristen, I just saw you came off.
Yes, yes, I do. My business is Iris Enterprises, and I specialize in human resource consulting as well as soft skills training for businesses. I know our questions right now are more directed towards unemployment and how we can get the funds to get us through these 13-week or shorter time frame. My question is more about we're only able to bring back so many employees at this time because we're able to because of our COVID limitations with, half staffing and those types of issues. So we have, how many millions of people on unemployment, and this is a great opportunity to retrain, to move our country into a new direction. And that's going to require so many new skill sets, and we need to find out where companies want to redirect their businesses and expand into new ways. So my question is, do we have funding to help support businesses in that massive skills training? And this is an area I've been practicing for the last 31 years in rehabilitating my own skills training. So is there some type of funding where we can support businesses so that they can elevate out of COVID-19 and get those individuals off of unemployment and moving into a new direction, and whatever that would look like?
Well, there are there's all sorts of different programs available across the state, both state programs and federal programs that are out there. The programs that we have available at the job service, for the most part, are set up to help the individual. So they're set up to help people that meet certain criteria: low income, dislocated workers, primarily disadvantaged adults. Those are programs that are set up to help the individual. There are some statewide programs called the Incumbent Workers Training Program that, Carl, I'm sure you're familiar with, that a business can use to send their person to a training. They can apply for these funds that they can send these people to training to help them get trained in a specific skill that they need for the business that they're at. So that's again a statewide program under Department of Labor, and it's funded by the legislature, and it's a great program, and that's specifically for businesses to train their staff in order to assist them to upgrade their skills. It's upgrading skills.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's actually I'm probably not the best person to talk to about that. Carl actually probably knows more than I do about that, but there are a variety of programs that are out there, and those are just the ones that I'm aware of right now. And I know that the state has applied for a dislocated worker grant to help people that are being laid off directly because of COVID, to try and get them retrained in a field that is more marketable, that they can use their skills. You know, historically, in economic downturns, the colleges and universities, their enrollment goes way up because people are seeking skills to be able to have that employment. So, and there's a variety of programs we can help individuals with to make them eligible to be able to get them in those training programs. So.
Yeah, I might just say a little bit. I think it's a good question, Kristen. As Kelly said, I think there are existing programs historically, that help businesses do that. In the new funding systems that are coming out to help sort of fill the gap during COVID crisis, most of them, and even the first rollout here, the state programs, are focused on just stopping the leaks. You know, really trying to help people right now and get money in pockets as fast as they can. The governor did reach out and ask everybody as a state, really, but lots of organizations, what kind of feedback they'd have, how to use the federal money that the state of Montana received, the roughly $250 million. And this is only a portion of it. So the programs they've sent out now is just roughly about 10% of that money. One of the things that we suggested from the University of Montana, as well as I know NITA and other organizations suggested, is a training program to help people have some money to retrain, refocus, build skill sets. So I would imagine we see that in the next couple of rounds, at least from the state money, and I'll bet we see something similar in the federal money. We also are seeing from the EDA some applications or potential for, and retraining is in those requests as well. So yeah, I think it's coming. I think the first money right now is just to try to get through the next few weeks, make the transition, and then yeah, we'll see that happen.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting question. Any other questions, thoughts? Deborah, you still have your hand up. Do you mean to have your hand up? Do you have another question, Deborah? Yeah, no?
I never took my hand down, Mike.
No problem. I didn't even know you could do that, so you taught me something today.
Yeah, I've been on many Zoom calls. My skill set is pretty high.
I've got a follow-up question.
Go ahead, Claire.
I've got a follow-up question to Kelly, what you were talking about. That was really interesting. I didn't realize that part-time people might still be eligible for unemployment, and that's exciting news also. I guess my question is, so I'm so excited. We brought back our part-time staff person today. Today's our first day back. And so I guess, I've been thinking that then that's kind of the end of unemployment. Should I tell her that she should look at filing and then she should just report her current wages and she should just keep filing?
Well, and you'll know immediately as long as she's not gross earning more than 2 times her weekly benefit amount. So if her weekly benefit amount is, say, $150, as long as she doesn't earn more than $300, she's going to be eligible for a partial payment. And remember, if she's eligible for even $1, she's going to get that $600 on top of that.
Okay, and so sorry, can you say that again? If she doesn't gross 2 times the what?
Her weekly benefit amount. So her weekly benefit amount minus the 600. So if she's eligible for $150 a week, she can earn up to $300 a week and still be eligible. It'll be a very small amount, but with what's going on now with the federal monies, she would get that extra $600 on top of that. So if she's eligible for $1, once she reports her wages, so she works for you, she works part-time, she works 10 hours a week at $15 an hour. So that'd be $150, right? Her weekly benefit amount's $150. It's not more than 2 times that weekly benefit amount. So she's going to get some money, and there's a formula. I don't have the formula in front of me. It's a little bit complicated, but she can look that up and see what her weekly benefit amount is. But I can guarantee you she would be eligible if she's earning exactly what her weekly benefit amount is. It's not more than 2 times that. She's going to be eligible for a partial benefit plus the additional $600, which is really good.
Thank you.
It's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. And another question on that. My understanding is that part of this legislation is that the unemployment benefits don't come off of the employer pot of money or something.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But that is that's for-profit businesses. And my understanding is that nonprofits, there's kind of something in the works, but that's not the case for nonprofits.
Well, I can't answer that. I'm not familiar with that, but I can tell you that normally employers are charged their unemployment tax based on the number of people that are filing against them or the amount of money that's going against them. There's some employers that are called reimbursable employers where they pay dollar for dollar what people are drawing from them in unemployment benefits. If it is COVID related layoff, in other words, that it's just not, they just weren't laid off because there was no work before this happened. But if it's COVID related, their accounts will not be charged if it's COVID related. So
okay, thank you.
That's good for employers. Yeah.
Thanks.
You bet.
Does anybody else have any questions on that? And Claire's question about the going back to work, continue to file for unemployment, and thus potentially, as long as it's not 2 times your amount that you're eligible for. I think it's a tricky thing to articulate, but I think it's really important for employees to understand that. So when they go back to work, they can recognize. I mean, there's a potential for some folks to earn even more than they were on unemployment. Because if they're eligible for $150 a week and they're getting the $600 a week from the federal government, if they go back to work for $150 a week, it's not 2 times their eligibility. So they're still eligible for a little bit. So now they get both, maybe, right? I mean, so it's kind of it's pretty, not a lot more, but I mean, it would mean that they're not losing out.
Right. Right. Yeah, it was meant to help people in what's going on now, and it certainly is helping people. So it's one bit of good news coming from all this, is that people are being helped. So, yeah. And one of the things that I just want to emphasize just a bit is we are seeing a lot of folks that have never filed for unemployment in their entire life. They have never filed for unemployment. It's easy for me to talk about because I've been around it for a long time, and I know the 2 times your weekly benefit amount and all those things that are just easy for me. That's hard for people that have not been around it to wrap their head around. So it's very important that you continue to file every week. When I say file, it's not file that initial claim. It's file for ongoing benefits where you only have to answer, are you able and available for work? That's maybe another thing. One of the first questions is, so you have to be able, available, and actively seeking work. With the COVID crisis right now, people are not being required to look for work. Normally, you, if you're not going back to your employer, you are required to make at least one job search contact a week. Well, job services are closed. I mean, it's a very difficult time for folks. So they've waived the requirement for looking for employment right now. But the able and available, we have a lot of people when I talked about creating issues and issue claim, that's creating issues for people on their claim, which is going to stop it till somebody is able to look at it, till one of those adjudicators in Helena are able to look at it and make sure if it's good or if it's bad. When you answer the question, able, available for work, some people think, well, I can't go to work because of COVID, so I'm not able to go to work. No, if COVID didn't exist, would you go back to your employer to work? That's how you have to think of it when you're answering the questions, because that is definitely going to cause a lot of problems for people. So.
Yeah, thanks for reiterating that. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I just launched a quick little poll that we put up on some of these just to sort of help us understand if you got your questions answered and so forth. So if you have a chance to answer the poll, I'm going to launch it. There it goes. Should show up on your screen. Just if you're a business owner or self-employed and that you got your answers or your questions answered today. But as we're doing that, any other questions for Kelly? We have about just a few more minutes left.
Yeah, Kelly, I had a follow-up question on one of my questions earlier.
Okay.
Yeah, so for those people who are perhaps filing for unemployment to backfill for work that was canceled due to COVID-19, so they need to be rejected from the normal unemployment and then apply for the PUA. That's right.
Yeah, unless they've not had more than $2,900 worth of wages, if they've not had the wages reported during last year that I talked about, the January 1st through December 31st, then they can just go directly to the pandemic unemployment, because they're not going to be eligible on the other one. But if they have those wages, then yeah, you'd have to be found not to be eligible for the regular UI and then apply for the pandemic one.
And for maybe some folks in here who are business owners, sole proprietors, self-employed, under wages, is that just taxable income? Would that include like 1040 stuff as well? Or is that just W-2 or W-4? No,
W-2 or W-4 are going to, it depends. And that's actually a really good point. Let me read this so I don't get it wrong, because I don't want to get it wrong. If a business is operated as a corporation or LLC, filing as a corporation, and the business reported wages for the owner as a corporate officer, then the owner may be eligible for regular unemployment benefits. If the owner of the business is a sole proprietor, partner, or LLC member whose LLC files as partnership, those entities are not subject to UI, and the owner would not be eligible for regular UI benefits. So if there's no wages reported to unemployment, they can go directly to the pandemic, the PUA.
Gotcha.
Does that help?
And then yeah, totally. And then for those people who, how long might people need to wait, or what's the process if they say like, okay, I do need to go and jump through the hoops of filing for regular unemployment and then get that claim rejected to file for the PUA.
I can't.
What is that?
I mean, I can just tell you they're doing the best they can, but there is a lot of folks that need help, and we've seen it happen very quickly. We've seen people that knew that they just had to file for the pandemic because they didn't have any wages reported, and they've gotten it immediately. And we've seen other people that had a variety of situations, had some wages on there, and they're still waiting. So I wish I had a better answer, but I can just tell you that all the resources in the state that they can is on there, and they're doing the best they can. So that's why it's really good that we try and give other resources to folks to be able to help them get through this till they can possibly get their money. So
totally. Yeah. Thank you for that response.
Yeah.
I think it's a great question, Mason. And I just talked to somebody yesterday who's a real estate broker but has some other businesses, an ag business they're trying to do. Those other businesses don't really bring any reportable income in, even though they're reported as businesses. But she filed for unemployment, was rejected, and I didn't know yesterday sort of that I would get back to her now and say, well, now's your time to file for the PUA portion of it, right? So
yeah.
If I will direct her in that direction, you do that's on the Montana Works site as well. Is that correct, Kelly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's two different spots, and remember there are two different systems, so you do have to apply for the pandemic, even if you had applied there and be found just not eligible. So okay.
That's a big learning. We didn't know that, so thank you for sharing that with us for sure.
Yeah.
Kelly, can I ask one more clarifying question on that point? Yeah. If somebody then is going through that process and they're getting they're waiting for their claim has been processed, has been denied, but I think it keeps going, right? Where it's just like you keep applying for the regular unemployment insurance. Should people then who needed their claim basically just denied so they could go get PUA, should they close their claim, or how should
No. It will, you'd file for the PUA. They'll see that they could pay you back from March 15th, I believe. So no, as long as you find out you're not eligible there, file for the PUA. You've kept filing all along like you needed to with the regular one. They're going to see that and they'll pay you back for those weeks.
Gotcha. Okay.
So even though they're two different systems, they sort of talk to each other, or they see people looking at them, see both systems. So
they can look at both systems. I'm not quite sure how they're doing that. I think with the self-employed folks, they're just, if there's been that holdup, whatever, they're going to automatically pay them back for those weeks. So
yeah,
normally, again, the claim is effective the week that you file, which is why you need to file immediately. So.
Yeah, the major takeaway, file immediately.
Great.
Right, great. Thank you very much, Kelly, for your time today and answering these questions. This is very helpful. So I appreciate your work as well. You're doing excellent work helping people out.
You guys too. So thanks so much.
Take good care. If anybody else on the call has ongoing questions, feel free to reach out to us, AMRII, University of Montana, AMRI, and we can get you in contact with folks. So appreciate it. Have a great day, everybody.